The first late night Reds game of the season was pretty bad. Was it just a bad night at the ballpark? Or is there something more to it? We're going to be all about it on today's Locked On Reds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Reds, and we are live. We are your daily source for all things Cincinnati Reds. I'm Stephen Offenbaker. He's Jeff Carr. We love baseball. We love these Cincinnati Reds. We've taken our love of the game, our love for this team, and we have turned it into information for you. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's show, we have some questions about David Bell's decision-making in last night's loss to the Seattle Mariners. CES has looked a little bit better at the plate, and we're going to discuss whether or not we think he's figuring it out and whether or not he might be about to break out. Also, of course, we are live here on YouTube right now, so we will be taking your questions and comments as we get ready for Game 2 of this 3-game set out in Seattle. Before we get into any of that, let's shout out the sponsor of today's podcast. Today's show is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I have to admit, I have a competitive side, and it is I'm a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on a classic Monopoly board game. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go today for free from the App Store or Google Play. All right, Jeff, it was not great. And I think we have to start with just some of the decision-making that took place in this game.
Yeah, because I get it. Frankie Montas comes out and he's not throwing strikes. There's 45 pitches in the very first inning. It was almost like a quick, hey, this isn't going to work out. Good job, or good luck trying to come back from this. But the Reds were able to at least put together a couple of runs. They were never really able to get a rally going. There weren't a lot of base runners there for them. So you could look at this game and think, it's just one of those games, right? Nothing going right. That happens in baseball. You just pack it in and play tomorrow. But I also think that David Bell deserves a little bit of questioning here because the way that he managed the pitching staff in this game. Frankie Montas comes out in the second inning, gets 3 outs on 12 pitches. All of a sudden we think, did he right the ship? Very first batter of the third inning, he walks. At that point, and Nick Martinez had been getting ready in the second inning, at that point, Nick Martinez should have been ready to come in. Bring him in at that moment because it was clear that if Frankie Montas was throwing a strike, it was going to be a beach ball. And then later on in the game, the way that he finished it by bringing in Buck Farmer, I'm starting to wonder a little bit about Buck Farmer, man. Like, is he the harbinger of bad times? Like, if David Bell goes to him in the bullpen, does that mean that the Reds are just saying, yeah, we're probably going to lose this game? Because that's what it feels like at this point.
Yeah, it was not fun. And you talk about Montas. I don't know if I want to push a panic.
Yeah, where
button.
Are we at on him? Are we worried about him?
The shoulder injury, I think, is the reason why everyone's freaking out today. And up until this point, Montas has looked like a viable Major League Baseball starting pitcher. I don't think one start undoes that. From what we've heard from the team, both after the game yesterday and, now into today, there's no report of injury. There's no report of shoulder discomfort. There's no report of a problem. Pitchers have bad games, and it seems like Frankie Montas had a heck of a bad game to start things off out in Seattle. His next start's going to be important. He's going to need a bounce back start to dispel some of the concern. But I think this was just a night where he didn't have it. And I think you're absolutely right. It was very clear there in the third inning when he came out and faced that first batter in the third that the wheels were about to come off. And I think David Bell was slow on the switch all the way through this game. And that's something you and I have been talking about with a little bit of regularity now. Somebody wake up David Bell. Somebody nudge David Bell. Somebody get David Bell involved in this game. I know it's early. I know there's 162 of these things that the Reds have to play, but it's awful early in the season to leave a guy out there. I was a little bit concerned for I was a little bit concerned for Frankie Montas throwing that many pitches in the first inning. A shout out to our guy Carlos, likes my haircut. That's right. I'm a little shiny today. I'm a little concerned about how many pitches he threw in the first inning. In fact, they said on the TV broadcast that that's the most pitches he's thrown in a single inning in his professional career. I don't like that, and I don't think that that was a great move on David Bell's part.
Well, and I wonder too, and the Happy Hermit brings this up. Remember the episode a while back stating Frankie was the ace you were looking for? Oof. Maybe we ought to take, maybe we as the Locked On Reds podcast should probably take a hiatus from declaring people aces, because every time we do that, they go crazy. We're just not allowed to have ace things here. So when it comes to his performance, I think in a vacuum, not worried about it. I didn't love the command that he had with the Brewers, and it's a very slippery slope for him. If he does not get strike one, it seems like he falls into a hole real quick. And I've never seen the kind of luck. I mean, they mentioned it on the broadcast, and I kept thinking it the whole night, walks will haunt. I've never seen walks haunted that much. Like, as soon as he walks somebody, the next guy hits a homer. Like, that was the quickest payoff for anybody walking anyone that I've ever seen in my life. So that kind of stunk for me. But after they take him out, Nick Martinez keeps this team in the ballgame, only gives up 1 run in his 4 innings. And I felt like at that point, the Reds were still in this. And so in the 7th, he brings in Buck Farmer. Buck Farmer, 1, 2, 3 guys get on base, guys scoring. And I'm like, okay, probably time to go back to the bullpen here at this point. No. It was at that point, with 0 outs in the 7th inning, that David Bell decided this game was out of reach. And I have a problem with that because this team can easily score 3 runs in 1 inning. This lineup is dangerous, man. And the way that Buck Farmer blew the lid off this thing and the Mariners went up by 6, at that point, the Mariners pitchers can pitch completely differently than if it is there's now no such thing in baseball, but as close to a 1-possession game in baseball as you could possibly have with just 3 runs on the board. I had a problem with that. And I know that there were people that were throwing, percentage chances of winning at me and things like this. And, David manages with analytics as much as he manages with his eyes and things. I understand all of that. I disagree with the execution.
Carlos Guevara says, Buck Farmer, oof, my man needs a stint on the Phantom IL to see if he can get his velocity and location back. His velo has been down since the start of the season. I think Carlos makes a great point there. Buck Farmer has not quite been Buck Farmer, and maybe that's some residual. We talked about how would some of these arms respond to the way that they were used last year. We talked about how guys being asked to do things they had never done before at the professional level. What was the carryover like? I wonder if that's what we're seeing with Buck Farmer. To your point on Frankie Montas and his control, 66 pitches in the game last night, Jeff. Do you know how many of them he got over for strikes?
Oh, God. I'm going to say 20.
He got over a little bit better than that. He got over 34. 34 strikes, 32 balls. That is not great. No. Yeah, and Buck Farmer's was not much better. He threw 40 pitches in this game, only 24 over for strikes. So
they were lacking a sinking command ship all the way around. Do you feel that way, or I don't know? Like maybe I'm making too much of this.
I mean, I guess it's okay for David Bell if he decided in his head that this was just going to be one that they weren't going to be able to dig out of and live to fight another day. But I don't know about leaving Farmer out there for that 2nd inning. I just don't know what good comes of that for a guy that's clearly struggling, clearly doesn't have it, and clearly is going to get smacked around. There has to be a better way than giving him the Ben Lively treatment where you just leave him out there until his arm falls off.
That's what we're going to call it now. The Ben Lively treatment. I think too, and I saw this on Twitter last night. Somebody said, well, at this point he's punted the game. So he's like, why waste anybody else from the bullpen? We'll just give them some rest. But quite frankly, the bullpen's had a lot of rest lately because the Reds have been crushing the White Sox. So it's not like they had to go to the pen for a lot of different things. So I don't know. I didn't love it. And I hope that we see a much, much different game here tonight. But I know this, Steve. CES looked pretty dang good last night. And it's making me think that we should add him to the list of watch out, maybe get him in your fantasy lineup, maybe add him on your team because he's about to break out. We'll tell you why coming up next. Everyone, I need you all to listen up for this huge announcement. I've been tracking the leaderboards every single day, keeping an eye on the scores, putting all my heart into it, and I'm super pumped to announce that I'm finally on top. I had a big day yesterday. Of course, that's right. I'm obviously talking about the hit game Monopoly Go. You might have heard about it. There's been over 150 million downloads, and it's a great twist on the classic Monopoly. You can play anywhere, anytime, with your phone. You explore hundreds of Monopoly boards from Vegas to Camelot to the moon, all while raking in a huge fortune. You can charge rent on iconic properties just like classic Monopoly. For your friends, you could get more from your friends and steal their fortunes as well. Or you could go after their Monopoly money by pulling bank heists and taking wrecking balls to their precious landmarks. But my favorite part is the leaderboards, where you can see who's a Monopoly tycoon and who's gone bankrupt. So go get yourself on the charts. Download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store and the Google Play Store.
Our friends over at Game Time have taken all of the guesswork out of buying tickets to your favorite sporting events. Jeff and I tell you about this all the time. We love the Game Time app. We head down to Great American Ballpark. We find our favorite restaurant or our favorite spot for a beverage, gets close to game time. We jump onto the app, we grab our tickets, and we head into the stadium. The Game Time app lets you see exactly what you are going to pay for your tickets with their all-in pricing. No surprises, no hidden fees. You know exactly what it is you're going to pay. And if you're not familiar with the venue that you're going to, they even have the views from your seats. Game Time has a great deal for you right now. If you use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB, you are going to get $20 off your first purchase for new users. That's the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase if you're a new user over at Game Time. That's $20 off their already much cheaper prices than if you were buying directly from the venue. Jeff and I have found so many deals where we've been able to score great seats at cheap prices using the Game Time app. Again, just download the Game Time app, create your account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off new users' first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed.
Thanks as always for making Locked On Reds your first listen every single day. Make sure you check out the Locked On NFL mock draft live Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 feed. If you're not familiar with the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 feed, it's on YouTube and it's on the Amazon Fire TV channels app. Again, it's our friends James Rapine and Jake Lisco over at Locked On Bengals going to be making a mock draft pick for the Cincinnati Bengals and so many more. I heard, Steve, I think there's going to be a trade. I think somebody trades up to get one of the quarterbacks. I think they're probably picking 15 quarterbacks in the first 4 picks. I don't know. You know, we're going to see some crazy things. So check out the Locked On NFL mock draft on Locked On Sports Today 24/7 at 7 p.m. Eastern time. That's coming up tomorrow. And Steve, for our everydayers out there, thank you for joining us here on this impromptu live edition. A little bit behind the scenes look. Sometimes late night post-game recordings are a little bit difficult, and it happened to be that case this time. So thank you for joining us here on this Tuesday afternoon live recording of Locked On Reds. Coming up on tomorrow's podcast, we are going to dive in to what the Reds can get back to doing in this weekend, because it feels like they had this series sweep of the White Sox where everything went right for them, and then they had this series opening loss to Seattle where everything went wrong for them. What are they missing? What can they fix? We'll get into that on tomorrow's episode. But I'll tell you this, Steve, the guy that's going to help them fix some stuff is CES, because he looks like he's fixing some stuff in his own game.
Yeah, 2 for 4 last night, Jeff, and got that old batting average up over 200, which is saying something the way that he started this season. His at-bats have looked better. He's making better contact. You know, he hit another long ball. He's getting there. I feel like, in the grand scheme of things, it's like he said, that clip we had of him on yesterday's show, I think it was, where he was basically like, yeah, I know I'm starting slow. It's a small sample size. I'm going to be okay. And I think we're starting to see that he's going to be okay. You know, he had a double in last night's game. It's coming together. I would be concerned if he wasn't showing signs, but he is showing signs. And with the fact that he continues to bat number 3 in this lineup, it's important for him to put it together to give the others some opportunities to drive him in.
Yeah, his expected numbers on Baseball Savant are great. You know, hitting over 250 on the expected batting average, almost slugging 500 expected slugging. So he's getting unlucky with the production that he's had so far. His batting average on balls on play bears that out. So when you look at all of that and you combine it with the fact that he's still hitting the ball hard, almost 92 miles an hour on average, he's going to be all right. Like, this isn't a situation where I'm looking at and saying, boy, something is off. They really need to, like, set him aside or something and try and work on something. He's going to be fine, just working through something. I'm very happy to see that too, because he has this ability to hit for extra bases, even if it isn't a home run, because of his line drive, you know, hit profile. We saw it last night. He hits one down the line. He hits one into the gap. Got a couple of doubles there. The first double led to a run because then Jake Fraley follows him up with the craziest, you know, excuse me swing that I ever did see from any player to get a double, because he just barely lands it in the line. It rolls off into the mile of foul territory that they have in Seattle. And as fast as Jake Fraley is, that's an easy double for him. But sometimes baseball is just baseball. But with CES doing this and being that guy in the 3 spot, Spencer Steer on a tiny little slump, think he's going to get right tonight. We'll talk a little bit more about that coming up later on. But all in all, CES is the guy that you and I picked. And if we didn't pick him, we at least had him as the second place guy to be the best hitter on this team this year.
Well, he was definitely the guy that I'm relying on to bring the power, and it hasn't quite got there yet. But I still think he could get that 35 home run mark.
Easily.
It's still plenty of time for him to get that done. But listen, he's not the only guy that has shown signs of breaking out or is breaking out. Let's take a minute and talk about raking Jake Fraley, because he committed some lefty on lefty crime. And I don't know if you people may not have just readily been paying attention to this, but right now Jake Fraley is hitting batting average 432. His OPS is 1.084. Jake Fraley's getting the job done right now, and yeah. I think he has played his way into a couple more lefty on lefty opportunities. I think
so too. And last night he had his, I think it was his 8th and his 9th at bat against lefties so far this season. And, you know, if you look at his batting average, he's got 4 hits in those 9 at bats. So it's going to look pretty favorable. But of those 4 hits, 3 of them are extra bases. I think that there's something to be said about even showing power in the smallest of sample sizes, that he should be given another look. I mean, they're giving looks to Will Benson to play every day, and while he's been in a little bit of a slump, I still think that should continue, especially without TJ Friedl in this lineup. Including without Friedl in this lineup, give Fraley every day at bats. I mean, what do you have to lose? This guy has shown in the, you know, last year when he was healthy that he can come up with a big hit in a clutch situation. Plus, you've got this added factor, at least right now, of the fact that Jake Fraley's playing against his former team. And we know how that goes. I mean, see Brandon Phillips against Cleveland, see Will Benson whenever they play Cleveland. There's multiple guys that whenever they play their former teams that traded them away what felt like to them too early, they go ham. And if he hadn't had a weird feet first slide into third base last night, he has a steal on top of the fact that he had a double and a homer. I think he deserves a lot more playing time, at least in the short term.
A couple other positives from that train wreck of a game last night, Jeff. There are some more. You mentioned Will Benson, another guy that went 2 for 4 on the multi-hit night. You know, you got to love it. Love to see that. Ellie De La Cruz. Let's talk about that catch from basically second base to no man's land in left field. 112 feet. The StatCast tracking system has him running to make that catch in not even short left field. He was almost on, maybe he was on the foul line in left field.
I saw that they said it was like 21.7 miles an hour that his sprint speed got up to catch that ball. And our friends over at Locked On Mariners, I also follow them. One of the, I believe it was Ty, said that DK Metcalf was recorded as going 22 miles an hour this past football season. And DK Metcalf is a freak of an athlete. That just tells you where Ellie De La Cruz is on the, athletic scale. And we already knew this, but to see it on full display right there, I said it in that moment. I'm like, when you got Ellie De La Cruz on that side of the field, Spencer Steer's range, or lack thereof, on defense is not a big deal because Ellie can basically cover the shallow half of left field.
Yeah, that was one of those spots where I didn't have a problem with Ellie going out there. I was critical of him a couple weeks back, Jeff, for going out there and seemingly not budging when he was being called off. One play in particular where Bubba Thompson was calling him off. You could tell he was calling him off, and Ellie did not budge. And I had a real problem with that. In this scenario, I admire the hustle. That ball was clearly going to drop if Ellie wasn't the one that got it. So, more power to him for getting out there and getting it done. It's those kind of things that that just make him special. You're not going to see that from, maybe one other shortstop in the game.
No,
if that.
And he is such an enigma. I mean, like, he's a guy that last night he goes over at the plate and you're like, oh boy, is he falling into some kind of slump? Even if Ellie is going through a slump at the plate, he can still affect the game. If he gets on via walk or if he gets hit by a pitch, we've seen that. We've seen him go all the way around the bases, score. His arm, he can make a huge play, throw somebody out the plate. And now his range, and I don't think we saw it a lot last year. Like, there were a lot of highlights, and I think that, I saw a couple of TikTok accounts that were making fun of this a little bit, of like, look at all these Ellie De La Cruz highlights, and it was him catching, like, pop flies that were basically infield fly balls that happened to just drift into the outfield a little bit. He is showing that there's very few balls that can get by him because of his range, and I absolutely love to see that from him on a day in and day out basis.
All right, Jeff, let's do this. The comment section is heating up. There's lots of folks watching us live here on YouTube. If you're watching live right now, click that like button real quick. We appreciate you being here. Click that like button. It helps push this out to more viewers. It gets more people here to talk some Reds baseball with us, and that's what it's all about. All right, coming up, we're going to dig into this comment section. We're going to get to your questions and comments, and we're going to start off with Hunter Greene. I see the conversation that you guys are having in there, and that warrants some discussion. We're going to be getting to Hunter Greene coming up next. Are you struggling to close deals? B2B selling is tougher than ever, and that's why I want to tell you about LinkedIn Sales Navigator. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a sales intelligence platform that helps professionals effectively prospect and engage high-value customers to drive higher revenue and increase sales performance. Sales Navigator helps you target the right buyers, surface key signals such as job changes or which accounts you should prioritize, and shows you hidden allies so you can find those buyers that are most likely to convert. Fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform, Sales Navigator gives you the most up-to-date first-party data, enabling you to unlock conversations with the people that matter. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. That's linkedin.com/lockedon for a 60-day free trial. Get LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/lockedon to get started. You can join the Locked On Reds Insiders today. Jeff has revamped the program and wants you to be an insider. He wants you to be the smartest Reds fan in your group. He wants everyone to come to you for your Reds knowledge, and he wants you to be an insider. For just $4.99 a month, you will become a smarter Reds fan. You'll get the latest updates via text. If you want to check it out, just text the word insider to 513-597-0944 to get a 14-day free trial to see if you like it.
Also, make sure you through the late night game tonight.
Oh, listen to you. Also, bookmark si.com/MLB/Reds for written content about the Reds. Jeff's writing over there. I'm writing over there. James Rapine, Audie Elmore, Rick Uccino, Caleb Sisk. Lots of great written content over there for you. Make sure you bookmark that site today. All right, Jeff, let's do this. Here we go. We've got Lawrence Pennington leading the charge to run Hunter Greene out of the town on the rails.
Does not like Hunter
He
Greene.
wants him He wants him out. He wants him gone. There's too many of his comments here for me to get them all on there. But, I just want to say this. He thinks luck is not on Hunter's side, period. He goes on in other ones to say that he doesn't think Hunter Greene's going to win any games. Listen, I know Hunter Greene has not been the second coming of Cy Young. I understand. Some of that's our fault. I've said this many times that while he was coming through the system, we all, and Jeff, you and I are guilty of this too, we all set the expectation bar so high that there was absolutely no way that this kid was ever going to hit it. It wasn't going to happen. The Reds are guilty in this scenario because they continue to push him out there as the ace, the face of the franchise, the pitcher number one until he wasn't. The Reds are guilty in this scenario. I'm not ready to give up on Hunter Greene. He's just 22 years old. Do I have that right? 22, 24. 22, 24. You look that up.
24.
Let's just say 24 years old.
24.
24. Still a lot of room for development. Still a lot of room for him to become this thing that we all want him to be, this talent that we all think he can be. He definitely has the ability. He definitely has the baseball IQ to get all of this done. That being said, this could be a prove-it game for Hunter Greene, given his last couple of starts, given what others have done since then. Hunter Greene does need to go out and prove a little bit that he can be a valuable member of this rotation, because there are guys chomping at the bit to get an opportunity to get up to the big league level and pitch. And I just don't think that certainly the Reds are not going to give up on Hunter Greene anytime soon. And Hunter Greene, I think he can figure it out. I think he can get there. And I think it all boils down to getting that third pitch to effectively keep hitters off balance.
Everydayers will know there's a great comparison that has been brought on ever since Hunter Greene's last start, where it was a little bit lackluster, a little bit, failing expectations type stuff, that he actually compares favorably, or at least right on the same level, with one Johnny Cueto. Johnny Cueto, in his first 61 starts, not a small sample size, 61 starts, had an ERA of 4.6. Hunter Greene, in his first 49 starts, has an ERA of 4.6. Both of them at the same age. Johnny Cueto really broke out his age 24 season. He dropped that ERA down into the threes, 3.6 for that entire year. Hunter Greene just got this year going, and he hasn't even gotten to 60 starts just yet. And I appreciate friend of the show, Lance McAllister of 700 WLW. Just about every time Hunter Greene starts and he doesn't throw a perfect game and people lose their minds, he points out the fact that Hunter Greene has still yet to throw 500 innings as a professional, minor league and major league innings combined. So it's not as if he is attacking this from the point of view that he's been doing this forever. I know that we've been hearing about Hunter Greene, and we've been ones talking about Hunter Greene for years and years and years. After being the number 2 overall pick, that's going to happen. But there's still plenty of time for him to break out. And honestly, except for Cal Raleigh, I'm a little bit worried about Cal Raleigh in this game because he can hit a fastball a long, long way. I think that this is a chance for him to get right, because this Mariners lineup, last night notwithstanding, has been bad to begin this season. Now, maybe last night was a bit of a catharsis for them, but I think I'd come in here with, as Hunter Greene, and I'd challenge him a little bit. Still work on the curveball, still work on the splitter, but he's got a shot to get right himself against a lineup that really hasn't scared anybody. And outside of the fact that they were gifted what felt like 120 walks last night, I think that this is a thing that is, if Hunter can keep this over the plate and attack the strike zone, I think he's going to have a good night. And I feel like we are consistently jumping on, if it's not Lawrence or other folks, Lawrence not the only one, but if it's not other folks that are just like, we're done with him, then there's this other crowd that's like, move him to the bullpen, make him a closer. None of that is warranted.
That's here too. Josh is checking in right now. Should he be in the bullpen? We have Connor Phillips coming, Rhett Lauder in the system. Carlton Van Hoy is over here in the chat, Jeff. He wants to trade him. He thinks with his velo down and his lack of a third pitch, it doesn't bode well with the prospects in the system. Basically, Carlton's saying Hunter's expendable. I'm nowhere near any of this stuff, you guys. I mean, I understand is it the expectation of winning this year that has everybody ready to just to blow this thing up?
And in our last summation of Hunter Greene's performance was we were worried. We're worried that he can't take that next step. We're not worried that it's time to move on from him. It's far from that. It is far from that. And also to Carlton's point, if his velo is down and hasn't looked all that great, not having a third pitch, that's not exactly a selling point. You're not selling high on Hunter Greene at this moment. So I don't see that. That's not even on the table for them right now. I think that moving to the bullpen's further up the table than trading him, and neither one of them are anywhere close to being a reality for this team. So I still think he's got plenty of time to prove it. I mean, he's still just 24 years old and this is his 50th. Let's point this out. This is his 50th career start. It's not as if we're talking about a guy that's had a long, long time. I mean, and I hate to bring this guy up. I really hate to bring this dude up on the podcast. But we gave Homer Bailey something like 150 starts. And what did he prove in 150 starts as a Cincinnati? 212 starts as a Cincinnati Red. He had a 4.56 ERA. You think this franchise is going to cut bait from Hunter Greene this quick? Yeah, out of your mind.
No, and I do want to say this about Hunter Greene, because when Lance dropped that tweet with the comparisons to Johnny Cueto, it was the same day that we had done or we're a little bit worried about Hunter Greene show. And it was also the same show where I kind of ripped into him, and I was really just kind of ticked off that he didn't cover home plate in that game. And I let him have it. And, I tweeted at the time, I said what I said. I am concerned that he's not developing this third pitch. I am concerned that the fastball is still flat, but I am in no way, shape, or form ready to move on from Hunter Greene. I am nowhere near ready to call for him to be moved to the bullpen. I really hope that this is the season that he can have this year that mirrors what Brandon Williamson was able to do last year, where he really focuses up and spends time with Derek Johnson and gets better each start out and starts to do things. We saw him throw the curveball and the splitter in his last start. Now, they weren't great, but he used them both in the game. That's a difference from what he had been doing. If he continues to do that in this start and those pitches are better this time than they were last time, then I'll accept that as progress and I'll be happy about it, even if they aren't necessarily kill pitches right now and striking guys out. As long as he's continuing to work on them and getting better, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and I think even too, and I said earlier in the game, we wanted to look at some picks and things like that, and looking at FanDuel on the prop bets right now, they have his over-under strikeouts at 8.5. I kind of feel like that's the right number. I don't want to say that he's going to come out here and have 10, 11, 12 strikeouts in this game. Kind of feel like 8 is the right number for this, but I think we're getting 6 innings out of Hunter Greene, and I think that it's 2, Homer Bailey laughing to the bank. Yeah, and I think it's maybe two earned runs or less. I think he's going to have a really good start tonight.
All right. Well, I think we've beat on Hunter enough, guys. I'm not ready. I think he's going to have a great start. Hopefully that what happens is he goes out there, and this typically the way it goes with this show, you all know that you're here every day. We talk about a guy and he goes out and blows up the entire narrative. So I hope that Hunter has seen the comment section today. He is going to pitch the game of his life because you guys have been letting him have it. While we've still got some time, folks, is there anybody else on the team that you want to talk about? Anything else?
While you're looking
to discuss,
Seattle, and another pick for you here if you're over on FanDuel, our official sportsbook of Locked On. Seattle is a cavernous ballpark. That outfield is massive. There's so many spots for a hitter to drop in a ball and hit a triple. Ellie De La Cruz is 22-1 to get a triple. I mean, really. What are we doing at that point? Put something on that. I'm doing it right now. I'm clicking the thing, clicked it. Bam. 22-1. That's an unbelievable number. And I think that he is going to be, he's had a rough couple of games here. The last game in Chicago, this first game in Seattle, I think he gets himself a triple tonight, maybe a couple steals as well, either a walk or a single, get on base. I think he's getting back on that train as far as building the batting average and building the on base percentage. But 22-1 to get a triple? Are we serious?
This from a Rags to Ruin story here, watching live on YouTube. He says, going back to the David Bell waving the white flag narrative, with the never say die makeup of this club, that seems like a quick way to lose the locker room. The Rally Reds don't quit. You know, Jeff, it hit you and I both that he waved the white flag.
Yeah.
I wonder if the players perceived it that way as well. And this is a fair
short
point.
At bats on those final
yeah,
two
this is a fair point that, you know, if it happens once, okay, you know, David Bell made a mistake, whatever. That one mistake's not going to cost him the locker room. But if he gets in the habit of doing this, I think that's a fair point. It could cause problems down the road.
I mean, there's a reason that we're going to start calling it, he got Ben Lively'd, because a manager that does that to a pitcher, I mean, you got to wonder a little bit, because you're right. I mean, that start last year with Ben Lively was a white flag wave. It's like, all right, you're pitching, you're throwing. And if you give up 11 runs, if you give up 20 runs, you're going 6 innings. And that is basically saying that the outcome of this game does not matter. And for a team with the aspirations that the Reds have, you can't do that. And I know you're managing a long season and all this other stuff, but there is a fragile fabric that is the way a season can go. And a game like that can be a reason, can be a nail in the coffin of a season that we look back and say, well, they missed the playoffs because of this. Like, do you want that to be the one game? That's the other part of me that I'm like, I'm glad I'm not a manager, because Lord knows I don't want to have to answer those questions. But at the end of the day, is the question, we're making sure that we're going to be good for September, or on October 2nd, I think, is when the season ends, are we going to look back and say, man, April 15th, maybe we should have looked at that differently?
Happy Hermit checks in, and the comment section is scrappy today, Jeff. Everybody is scrappy. Happy Hermit checks in and says, during the season isn't a time to work on adding pitches. Well, no, he added the pitches in spring training. He's been working on them since then. But every single pitcher that I've ever talked to, that we've had on this show, that we've talked to in person, says that pitching in a Major League Baseball game is different than anything you can do in Goodyear, anything you can do in a bullpen, anything you can do in the offseason. It's just different. Hunter Greene's been working on these pitches. For these pitches to get better, for them to be effective, for them to be killer pitches, he's going to have to use them in games, and they're going to suck for a little bit. But he's going to have to keep throwing them. That's the only way that he's going to get better, is to throw them against Major League hitters that are trying to beat him, and he's going to have to figure out how to beat them. I have no problem with him doing this. This is the same thing Brendan Williamson did, guys. This is nothing new.
Yeah.
Brendan Williamson came up from Louisville, not pitching well at all, and they ran him out there, and Derek Johnson worked with him, and he's a success story now because of that. That's the same thing I want to see from Hunter Greene. No, I'm not saying he needs to go try to figure out how to throw a knuckle now because the thing's not working. He hasn't worked on that. I'm saying he continues to develop what he's been doing. And to do that, he has to use them. He didn't do that last year. He worked on that changeup. He worked on adding a third pitch, and the season started, and he lacked the confidence to continue to go out there and throw it against Major League hitters. This is different this year. This is how he gets better.
My question for the folks that believe you can't work on pitches during the season because that's not the time to do it. Do you golf? Have you gone to a driving range? Have you worked on a shot at a driving range and it worked? And you're like, okay, I got this. And then the first round out with your buddies, you try that shot and you shank it into the woods. Do you do that shot again during that round? No, because you're worried that it's not going to work. That's the same situation that Hunter Greene is in. If he throws a splitter in a 2-strike count, and it's a waste pitch and it rolls up to the plate and all that other stuff, do you really think that he's going to have the kind of confidence and the kind of want to go back to that pitch later on in the game? It's all about how it works in a game. And you don't know how it works in a game until you throw it in the game. Because when it comes to practice, it is a controlled environment that you are able to do drills and do focused work on specific things. And you do it in an environment that is either sterile, or if it's competitive, if you have a scenario that the coaches have set up, there's still this thought in the back of your mind of like, well, this is a scenario. This isn't real. It's when you get on the mound and you're facing the Mariners, or you're facing the Cubs, or you're facing the Brewers, you're facing a different team that is not out there to help you develop. They're out there to kill you. That's when you've got to figure out exactly how much confidence you have in the pitch. And you cannot work on a pitch behind the scenes and come in with 100% full confidence until you throw it in that situation and it works. So until he figures out a way to get that curveball and that splitter to work, he will never have a third pitch. You don't just show up with a third pitch. You have to work on it during the season. That's why he's doing it. That's why it's been thrown scarcely, because he just hasn't found that moment where he's like, I can go back to that pitch.
Honest fans asking us to stay up late tonight, Jeff. Want something to listen to on his way to work tomorrow. I think our intention is to record after the game tonight. So we'll be in your feeds first thing in the morning. That's, I think, is the plan. Let's get a couple more of these before we get out of here. Well, I'm all fired up now. You guys got me all fired up. I was telling Jeff before we started today that I wasn't feeling very fired up, but now I am definitely feeling it a little bit. Couple of the comments, just some housekeeping comments here, Jeff. Jeffrey wants us to get Doug on. Doug's friend of the show. You and I both talked to him up in Dayton when we were at that media event. I think we can have.
I think once we have just a smidge more data on our minor leagues. I mean, I know like Cam Collier's tearing it up for Dayton right now, but small sample size. And there's been some other guys that have played pretty well in some cases. And I definitely would like to do a segment on Louisville and, you know, who's down there that we can trust on the position side, because we know that there's quite a few pitchers down there we can trust. But, man, if you look on the position side, you got to squint really hard and be like, boy, we can call this guy up and, you know, feel okay about him. Like, I'm starting to wonder if we even have quadruple A players down in triple A. Like, maybe Mike Ford, but anybody else sticking out there? Because I'm not feeling it.
All right. I think these guys are just trying to keep me lit, but we're going for it anyway. Grant says, I have just felt like excuses are made for Greene after any poor start. I feel like Hunter Greene gets attacked more than any other starter on this team. I think that more often than not, even when he has a good start, I've seen people out there needling, you know, he strikes out 10 guys and walks too, and people are talking about the 2 walks. I don't know. Maybe that's just anecdotal. I don't have metrics on that. That's just my perception of it. I don't think anybody's making excuses for Hunter Greene. Everybody's saying he needs to get better. Everybody's saying he needs to do the things to improve and be the guy. I don't see it that way.
You want to know the empirical evidence to the point that you're making? I see absolutely no comments about Frankie Montes' start last night. I see a lot about Hunter Greene.
Yeah, it started even if you go all the way back to the beginning of the live chat while we were talking about Montes, that's where the Greene conversation started. You're absolutely right.
And look, I mean, he hasn't, I'm not saying that he's proven that he's an ace or he's proven that he deserves, you know, all the hype that's around him. He definitely needs to do some work. He's got work to do, but I'm also nowhere near the group that is saying that he's done and he needs to be moved to the pen or they need to get rid of him. I don't feel that either.
Carlton, this is a good point. Carlton Van Hoy says heavy is the head that signed a contract with little production. I mean, you're right. And that's where I was saying that, you know, some of this is on the Reds, some of this is on Hunter, some of this is on folks like us.
I think whenever Zach Brown did the cover of that song, they were going to do that. And then they're like, no, it's heavy as the head that wears the crown, not that other thing.
All right, guys, listen, we're 45 minutes here. Got to get some things done so we can reset for tonight's game and then be back at you in the morning. Really appreciate you all jumping on and joining us here for this impromptu live edition of the show. Again, we will be in your feeds normal time in the morning for sure. Jeff and I are going to record breaking down Hunter Greene's start, breaking down what we hope is the Reds evening the series at 1 game apiece out there in Seattle. I think they have a good shot at it. The Mariners are throwing a righty. Gilbert is pitching for
Logan Gilbert,
the Mariners, right-handed pitcher. Yeah. Pretty good, but that gives the Reds the opportunity to put their best lineup possible with who they've got out on the field. The lefties will be able to hopefully feast, and we'll be talking about a win And with that being said, Jeff, I think that's a good spot to go ahead and wrap it up. Why don't you get us out of here?
One more pick before we get out of here, Steven. It's going to shock the world. Take the under on the total run scored tonight. That's how we're going to end today's Locked On Reds podcast. Thanks everybody for joining us here on this live edition
legal?
of the pod. Yeah, I know.
Can you do that?
Sometimes I do that. But we will be in your feeds tomorrow morning because we are Locked On Reds every single day.
You think you knew that the under existed?
Every so often I slip and I click the wrong button.